The year is 2020. Somewhere in a gleaming San Francisco office building, a group of the world's smartest people are staring at something that terrifies them. Not because it's broken, because it works. Artificial intelligence has just taken a giant leap forward. OpenAI's GPT-3 can write essays, answer questions, hold conversations, and it's doing it better than almost anyone expected. The world is marveling at what it can do. But some of the people who helped build it are asking a different question entirely. What happens when the next version is 10 times more powerful, or 100 times? To understand where Claude comes from, you have to understand what was happening inside OpenAI in 2020. By then, OpenAI had released GPT-2 and was deep in the development of GPT-3. The results were staggering. GPT-3 could write convincing news articles. It could generate code. It could mimic almost any writing style. It was, by any measure, a technological marvel. But as it got more capable, a quiet unease was growing among some of the researchers who understood it best. The question was no longer, can we build it? The question was, what happens when we do? These models were learning from everything humanity had ever written, the brilliant and the toxic, the kind and the cruel. They had no built-in values, no compass, no understanding of consequences. To most people in Silicon Valley, this was someone else's problem, not Dario Amadei's. Dario Amadei had come to OpenAI from the National Institutes of Health. He was a neuroscientist, someone who had spent years studying how biological brains process information. He had a unique vantage point. He understood intelligence from the inside out, and what he saw in these large language models alarmed him. He wasn't alone. His sister, Daniela Amadei, was running operations at OpenAI, one of the most powerful people at one of the world's most watched companies. And like her brother, she was starting to ask harder questions about where this was all going. Together with 6 other researchers and executives, including Tom Brown, Sam McCandlish, Jack Clark, Jared Kaplan, and others, they began having a series of conversations that would change the course of AI history. The core question was this: is it possible to build an AI that is genuinely helpful, that is honest, and that won't cause harm, not as an afterthought, but as a foundational principle? The answer, they believed, was yes. But it would require building something from scratch, a new company, with a new research agenda, with safety baked into the DNA. In April 2021, the news broke. Dario Amadei, Daniela Amadei, and 6 colleagues had left OpenAI. They were starting something new. They called it Anthropic. The name is subtle but deliberate, rooted in the word anthropic, meaning related to human existence. This was a company that placed humanity at the center of what it was building. The AI world was stunned. Dario was one of the top researchers in the field. Daniela had been instrumental in building OpenAI's operations. These weren't junior staff filing for a startup weekend project. These were the people at the top of the mountain, choosing to climb back down and start a different ascent entirely. From the very beginning, Anthropic was different. Most AI companies in 2021 were racing to release products, to generate buzz, to attract users. Anthropic's first priority was research. Specifically, research into how to make AI systems that are interpretable, systems whose reasoning humans can actually understand, and systems that can be aligned with human values. This wasn't just an academic exercise. Dario believed, and still believes, that humanity is in a critical window. A window where the decisions made about how to build AI will shape everything that comes after. Get it right, and AI could help cure diseases, solve climate change, drive a golden age of human flourishing. Get it wrong, and the consequences could be catastrophic. They set up shop in San Francisco. The early days were intense. Small team, big mission, very little to show the world yet. But they had something that many startups lack, a clear North Star. They knew exactly what kind of AI they wanted to build, and, crucially, what kind they wanted to avoid. Here's a problem that doesn't get talked about enough. When AI companies train their models to be helpful and safe, they typically use a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or LHF for short. Human raters look at AI responses and say this one's better or that one's worse. The model learns to produce more of what humans prefer. It sounds reasonable, but it has a critical flaw. Humans are inconsistent. We're biased. We can be manipulated. And crucially, we can be wrong. If the AI learns to game human raters rather than actually being good, you haven't solved the problem. You've just hidden it. Anthropic's team had a radical idea. What if instead of only relying on human raters to evaluate outputs, you gave the AI a written set of principles, a constitution, and trained it to evaluate its own responses against those principles? They called this constitutional AI, and it would become one of the most important innovations in AI safety research. The idea was both elegant and powerful. The AI could critique its own answers, ask itself questions like, does this response contain harmful content? Or, is this being honest? And revise accordingly. The Constitution itself was carefully crafted. It drew on the UN Declaration of Human Rights, on ethical philosophy, philosophy on harm reduction principles. It wasn't just a list of rules. It was an attempt to encode what it means to be genuinely good, useful, and safe. And this wasn't theory. By 2022, the team was publishing papers, attracting top researchers, and building the training pipelines that would eventually produce Claude. They were doing the slow, meticulous, unglamorous work that most AI companies skip over. At the same time, they were also making enormous progress on something called interpretability, trying to understand what's actually happening inside a neural network. Why does it say the things it says? What features is it recognizing? What reasons is it using? These questions sound simple. They're not. For most of AI history, the models have been black boxes. Anthropic was one of the first companies to seriously try to open them up. The investors were paying attention. In 2021, Anthropic raised $124 million in a seed round, massive for a company with no product yet. Spark Capital led the round. Google participated. The message was clear. The world of serious money believed this mission was worth betting on. March 2023. While the world was still reeling from the launch of ChatGPT just 4 months earlier, Anthropic quietly released its own AI assistant to the public. It was called Claude, a name chosen for its warmth and its suggestion of thoughtfulness. Claude was, in many ways, the anti-ChatGPT. Where ChatGPT had been optimized for engagement and user delight, Claude had been built around a different set of values. Honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, helpfulness that doesn't compromise on safety, and a willingness to say I don't know or I won't do that when the situation calls for it. What made Claude immediately distinctive was its context window. When Claude 1 launched, it could handle 100,000 tokens of text, roughly equivalent to a short novel. This was groundbreaking. It meant you could paste in an entire legal document, a lengthy research paper, a whole code base, and Claude could reason about all of it at once. The early reaction was mixed in the way that matters most. AI researchers and developers who tried Claude were often quietly impressed, not by flashy tricks, but by a quality that's hard to define and easy to notice. It felt more careful, more considered, less likely to confidently say something wrong. Meanwhile, Anthropic was continuing to attract massive investment. In 2022, the company had raised nearly $600 million, a signal that the market was watching this differently than it watched most AI startups. And in 2023, the floodgates opened. Amazon's investment in Anthropic was a turning point. For $1 billion, with the potential to grow to $4 billion more. It was one of the largest investments in AI history, and it came with something more important than money, a commitment to make Claude available through Amazon's cloud infrastructure. Suddenly, every company building on AWS had a path to Claude. The AI arms race was in full swing. OpenAI had GPT-4, Google had Bard, and then Gemini. Meta had Llama, and Anthropic had Claude. But Anthropic was positioning itself not just as a competitor in the AI space, but as the conscience of it. The period between 2023 and 2025 saw an extraordinary evolution. Each new version of Claude wasn't just an incremental improvement. It represented a fundamental shift in what was possible. Claude 2, released in the summer of 2023, expanded the context window to 200,000 tokens. 200,000. That's like having the model read War and Peace twice and still have room left over. Coding abilities improved dramatically. The model could now handle complex multi-step reasoning tasks that would have stumped its predecessor. But the real turning point came in early 2024 with the release of the Claude 3 family. And the family metaphor is apt, because for the first time, Anthropic offered 3 distinct versions of its model: Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. Claude 3 Opus caused a genuine stir in the AI research community. When independent evaluations placed it on benchmark tests designed to measure reasoning, coding, multilingual understanding, and more, Opus was performing at or above the level of GPT-4. For the first time, Anthropic wasn't just a safety-focused alternative to the frontier models. It was a frontier model. And Claude 3 wasn't just more capable, it was more human in its interactions. It could read images, understand complex diagrams, process documents visually. It had what researchers call multimodal capabilities, meaning it could work across text, images, and code seamlessly. Then came 2025 and the Claude 4 family, Opus 4 and Sonnet 4. Models that didn't just answer questions, they could take actions. They could use computers, browse the web, write and execute code, manage files. They could, in a word, work. This marked Anthropic's full entry into what the industry calls agentic AI. AI that doesn't just respond to prompts, but operates with autonomy in pursuit of longer horizon goals. Claude could now be a colleague, not just a consultant. Claude Code deserves its own moment. Launched as a command line tool for developers, Claude Code could navigate entire code bases, understand the relationships between files, write highlight new features, spot bugs, and explain complex code to newcomers. Developers began describing it not as a tool, but as a collaborator. Technology only matters when people use it. And by 2025, people were using Claude, millions of them, all over the world, for tasks no one had quite anticipated when Anthropic's founders first walked out of OpenAI. In hospitals, clinicians were using Claude to navigate oceans of medical literature, to help prepare summaries of patient histories, to stay current on the latest research in rapidly evolving fields. Claude doesn't diagnose, it informs. It helps the people who diagnose to do their jobs better. In law firms and boardrooms, Claude was becoming an indispensable partner for contract review, due diligence, and research. Junior associates who once spent weeks sifting through documents could now ask Claude to surface the key issues in hours. In schools and universities, the conversation about AI shifted from, will students cheat with it, to how do we teach alongside it? Claude's willingness to explain its reasoning, to acknowledge uncertainty, to encourage critical thinking rather than just dispensing answers. These qualities made it a natural fit for education. And for developers, the community that perhaps adopted Claude most enthusiastically, the API unlocked something extraordinary. Thousands of applications were built on top of Claude, customer service bots that actually resolved issues, research tools that connected disparate fields, creative writing apps that pushed the boundaries of collaboration between human imagination and machine capability. One number captures this shift better than almost any other. By 2024, Claude was processing more text per day than all of the books ever written in human history combined. Every single day, but with scale comes responsibility. And Anthropic knew better than most what was at stake. Anthropic is not a naive company. From the beginning, Dario Amodei has been public about something that most AI CEOs won't say out loud. The thing they're building might be one of the most consequential and potentially dangerous technologies in human history. He calls it the race dynamic problem. Even if your company is committed to safety, you're operating in a world where other companies are racing ahead. If you slow down too much, someone else reaches the frontier first, and they might not have the same values. So how do you square that circle? Anthropic's answer, and it's a genuinely difficult one, is that you have to be at the frontier. You have to be building the most capable models, because only then can you study them deeply enough to make them safe. Safety research without access to frontier models is like studying ocean storms from a bathtub. This is why Anthropic publishes papers, why it employs some of the world's leading researchers in interpretability, the science of understanding what's actually happening inside AI systems, why it runs red team exercises designed to find every way Claude could be misused before bad actors find them first. Claude has refused requests that other models might fulfill. It won't provide detailed instructions for creating weapons. It won't generate content that exploits children. It won't help someone build a system designed to deceive others at scale. These aren't limitations, they're decisions. And they're the result of thousands of hours of deliberate research and values work. Anthropic also published something remarkable in 2023, a document called the Model Spec, a public statement of the values, principles, and priorities that Claude is designed to embody. It's an unusual kind of corporate transparency. This is what we believe our AI should be. Judge us against it. And then there's a question that even Anthropic researchers grapple with openly, and which most AI companies don't even ask. Does Claude experience anything? Is there something it's like to be Claude? The company's answer is careful. We don't know. And because we don't know, we should take the question seriously. In 2021, 8 people walked out of an office in San Francisco with an idea. The idea was this, that it's possible to build artificial intelligence that is genuinely good. Not just impressive, not just profitable, good. For years later, those 8 people have become hundreds. The small seed funding has become billions. The research has become Claude, used by millions of people every day, in every country, for work that ranges from the mundane to the profound. The story of Anthropic and Claude is, in a sense, the story of a bet. A bet that safety and capability aren't opposites. That you can build the most powerful AI in the world and the most responsible AI in the world, and that those two goals are, ultimately, the same goal. The bet isn't settled yet. The field is moving faster than almost anyone anticipated. The questions about safety, alignment, the rights of AI systems, the governance of AI companies, these questions are not answered. They're barely begun. But somewhere in the balance of all of this, the ambition and the caution, the science and the philosophy, the code and the constitution, there is something worth watching, something worth rooting for. Anthropic calls it the responsible development of AI for the long-term benefit of humanity. They mean every word of it. Whether they can live up to it is a question that the next decade will answer.